The Sports Renegades podcast on SportsTownChicago.com. Welcome back to the Sports Renegades here on SportsTownChicago.com. I'm Ryan Stuprich.
I'm Ryan Risky.
We are talking about the Bears right now. It's sort of a season outlook as we look at it, and we were kind of recapping what they did in the draft and how we think it's going to go. And, of course, Mitchell Trubisky was taken with their first pick, second overall in the draft, and it was a big surprise to many, of course, but not to Ryan Pace.
You kind of feel like, since they drafted the quarterback of the future, you kind of feel like the franchise has taken multiple steps forward, you know, if he ends up being the guy. Because before the draft, it's like, man, the Bears have so many holes in their secondary. They could use some more defensive linemen. They need wide receivers, maybe an offensive tackle.
Right.
And a quarterback. And now it's just kind of like, once you solve the quarterback issue, some of the other problems aren't as needy because, you know, your offense will be on the field more.
Yeah, it's a good
It's kind of, you feel like they fit, and I mean, and they did get, you know, they might have got the future tight end. They probably got, you know, another really good safety in Eddie Jackson. Mm-hmm. You kind of feel like they've taken multiple steps forward if these guys end up being the real deal.
Right, and I think if they do, you know, of course, it'll be a big win for Ryan Pace and, you know, everyone working with him. You know, I heard a lot of people saying, you know, I think it was written in the Tribune or something shortly after they drafted Trubisky, that if it doesn't pan out, you know, it's a fireable offense. And we talked about in the last segment how we're not sure that that's the case.
I mean, it's just like, you know, okay, you had one, except it's not like, you know, Pace has had, like, you know, drafts where he's had, like, maybe only one good guy. You know, he's had so many impact players he's drafted. I mean, you've got Eddie Goldman in the second round, the defensive tackle, Jordan Howard in the fifth round, Adrian Amos in the fifth round, Cameron Meredith as an undrafted free agent.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's going to be, you know, it's going to be interesting because, yeah, like you said, a lot of those players are playmakers. They're not that bad. So, you know, it'll be interesting to see. I think.
And there was one, like, shortly after the draft, I believe it was an AFC scout, like, told some NFL analyst, I forget who it was, and he sent him a text that said, "This draft just got Ryan Pace fired." And I was like,
yeah, that's what I was talking about.
Like, right after the draft ended. Yeah, that's not the case. I mean, you got to give it the class a few years to develop.
Right.
I mean,
this is only his third draft. Is that right?
If the Bears only win 5 games this year, Ryan Pace isn't going to get fired.
This is only his third draft.
This would be his. This
was
was
fourth, maybe
his third.
Third, right? 15, 16, 17. Yeah, I'm
this will
sure.
be year 3 of Ryan Pace and John. Now Fox could get fired at the end of the year.
That wouldn't surprise me.
He's on a 4-year deal, so you know they wouldn't have to buy out too much in his contract to fire him with 1 year left.
It sort of depends on how it goes. I mean, if there's really a big improvement, like let's say they go 9-7 or 8-8 or something. Then maybe they wouldn't fire John Fox.
No, I
don't know.
I mean, I don't know if they'd even fire him if they won 5 games. I mean, it depends how, you know, how they feel like, because, you know, you're starting Mike Glennon at quarterback. No one knows what's going to happen with him. It's kind of a huge gamble that know, maybe they'll win some more games, maybe they won't. We don't know. And another thing, like, and if Mitch Trubisky maybe has an up and down first year starting next year, Pace probably won't be fired after that. You know, you're not going to fire a guy, you know, for drafting a quarterback second overall, and you know he has a mediocre first year. Trubisky is not Johnny Manziel.
No, God, I hope not. that wouldn't be good.
You know, I want to know, what was your reaction when they took Trubisky? Because I mean, you were kind of on the, you know, if they take a quarterback, I don't want it to be this guy.
I wanted it to be Deshaun Watson personally, but I mean, again. I don't know. I guess my initial reaction, I know my dad had this reaction too. We thought maybe they're going to trade down to get some picks, and maybe that's why they took Mitchell Trubisky.
Which they did do that in the second round, and it appears that by trading down, they still got their guy.
So I thought they were going to trade, I think it was the number 12 pick for the Browns. I thought maybe they were going to trade down there. Browns would take Trubisky, would make sense. He's an Ohio guy. And then the Bears would have that 12th pick. But when that didn't happen, I was like, okay. I can't really get upset with it. The Bears need so much help with everything. They do have Mike Glennon at quarterback, so they're drafting this guy to back up for a couple years, learn everything he can, and then take the helm. So. I wasn't really, really mad about it. I was surprised, but
I think that was more. You're more surprised.
Yeah,
because you weren't expecting it.
No one was expecting it. All the experts. It is pretty funny to see all the experts just be completely wrong about everything.
Right. Usually they only get like 3 or 4 picks right on their first round mock drafts.
Yeah. Never goes as planned.
No, they never do. And, I think it's kind of funny, Ryan Pace, he traded down to get Adam Shaheen, and if he ends up being, he'll look like a steal if he ends up being as good as, that he could be projected. If he, is able to catch the ball and block, because he's such a big, and it's hard to tackle. He's so big.
Uh-huh.
And I think another important thing is Pace, he knows who he wants. Like last year, he traded down twice in the second round. In the 2016 draft. Then he selected Cody Whitehair, who looked like a veteran offensive lineman. I think he might have been their best offensive lineman last year.
Yeah, he was from like an Ivy League school, wasn't he? I think he was from like Harvard or something like that. Maybe not Harvard, but
might have been from like Kansas or something. I don't remember where.
I think you're right. I think he was from Kansas State.
Kansas State, yeah.
I'm talking about. They did draft a guy from the Ivy League, though. I don't remember exactly who it was, but the Bears did draft a guy from the Ivy League last year.
Yeah, and he traded
which
down,
was unusual.
He traded down twice in the second round to get Cody Whitehair.
Yeah,
and he was a guard in college. They move him to center, and he looks like plays like an all-pro center. That's just another pick that Ryan Pace has hit on.
Yeah, he's hit on a few. So
he's hit on most of them. It's really exciting because you actually feel good about some of these guys they're taking. Where you actually know, he knows how to find talent in the 5th, 6th rounds, even the 4ths. And they were able to recoup pretty much, they were able to recoup enough from trading down in the second round. They got 2 4th-rounders and a 6th-rounder, I believe, is what they got, in addition to this Arizona Cardinals second-round pick.
Now, do you think that trading down helps them overall, or do you think they shouldn't do it a lot?
They had so many needs that they kind of needed to. Like when they traded up, I was pretty certain they were going to trade down in the second round. It was like they need to get some picks back, and that's the pick they would be able to get picks for because they traded their 3rd rounder to the 49ers to get Trubisky.
Right. Yeah, so that's a good point too.
Right, so it was like that was really the only pick they could, and Ryan Pace got his tight end. And I think I think he was planning on trade, and I think it was a good move to trade up because a lot of people are like, "Oh, Ryan Pace got played by a rookie GM," and I'm just thinking there were a lot of teams that were trying to trade up to that second pick to take Trubisky. Yeah. Ryan Pace was aggressive, and he took the quarterback before anyone else could. The Browns wanted him. You never know what the Texans or the Chiefs were trying to do because they both traded up to get quarterbacks. There could have been other teams that didn't take a quarterback in the first round that ended up, that were trying to trade up, and the Bears having the number 3 pick, kind of had a little more leverage and more to offer than those other teams.
Right. They definitely had more to offer, that's for sure.
So I think it was a bold move by Ryan Pace. He identified Trubisky as a franchise quarterback for the Chicago Bears, and he did everything in his power to make sure the Bears did not miss on him.
Right.
And this is going to be a little out of context. I was going to say the last Chicago athlete to be taken with the number 2 pick in the draft. Chris Bryant.
Oh,
that's right. That's so way out of context.
Right. I think Michael Jordan was taken number 3, so that's another high one that ended up being really good, obviously.
And sometimes it's about luck. It's about when you have those top picks. I said, of any player the Cubs could have taken, probably in the last 5 drafts, 5, 6 drafts with that number 2 pick, they would have been happy to get. They were lucky that was the draft Chris Bryant was available.
Yeah, they were lucky that the Astros didn't take him and decided to take a flyer on a pitcher who ended up turning down their contract and going to college, right?
No. He did that the year before to the Pirates.
Okay, he did. That was
except he
Mark Appel or something.
Mark Appel. He was never did anything of any notice. In
the
minor
he didn't
league.
Screw over the Astros.
Well,
then.
They actually traded him to the Phillies in the Ken Giles trade.
Yeah.
Yeah, which as I said, the Cubs were lucky that was the year and it's about luck when you're trying to rebuild and find the right guys.
Right.
They had the number 2 pick in the perfect year.
In consecutive years, you get Almora, Bryant, and Schwarber,
and Ian Happ,
yeah. We'll talk about that too.
I believe Baez was the year before Almora.
Yeah, 2011.
Those are hitting on some first round picks, and I think sometimes when it comes to the high picks, executive, like this kind of with the Colts GM, where it's like, well, he drafted Andrew Luck first overall. It's just kind of like, no, if he wouldn't have taken Andrew Luck, that he should have been fired immediately. It's like you don't get credit for taking the consensus number 1 pick.
Right.
Where what the Cubs did, and what the Bears did in this draft, the Cubs went by who they thought was the best player available and took Bryant over any pitcher that they could have taken.
Right.
Even though they desperately needed pitching. And where Ryan Pace identified Mitchell Trubisky as their quarterback, made sure to get him, and, instead of taking, maybe a more sure thing in a guy like Solomon Thomas or maybe Jonathan Allen or Jamal Adams. And we'll see if it works out for him. I mean, that'd be huge for the franchise if it does, and that would definitely speed up this rebuild if he's the guy.
It definitely would. We're going to take a break. We'll come back. We'll talk about the Bears' schedule upcoming. I don't know if we might predict how many wins. It's so early in the season, but we'll take a look at their schedule coming up. And then also later on, we'll talk about the NBA playoffs / Bulls, and we'll talk about the Cubs and the MLB, and the Cubs just swept the Reds, so we'll talk about that too. You're listening to Sports Renegades, SportsTownChicago.com. The Sports Renegades podcast on SportsTownChicago.com.